So now we're going to talk about the logical uniqueness of Christian monotheism. Having narrowed the field of religious contenders to the domain of those of monotheism, and having exposed the internal frailties of merit-based soteriologies within that domain, we are now compelled finally to ask, is there within monotheistic thought a system that does not collapse under the weight of divine justice and human insufficiency?
I'm going to try to demonstrate that the Christian conception of God's salvation
Is not only unique among all monotheistic systems, but that its internal coherence constitutes a necessary condition for any system that would claim to be both just and redemptive. So first of all, a God who is both transcendent and immanent. Let's talk about that. In the Christian framework, God is not merely a distant sovereign, nor simply moral legislature, but both infinite and personal. He's transcendent and he's immanent. He is above all creation, eternal, immutable, and self-existent. And yet, he has entered time, space, and human history. This paradox, far from constituting a logical flaw, provides the very solution and only solution to the tension explored in our previous discussions. Only a God who is both absolute in holiness and near in grace can accomplish what human merit cannot, which is deliverance from evil, suffering, and death. The doctrine of the incarnation, God becoming a human in the person of Jesus Christ, is thus not an irrational dogma, but the only conceivable bridge between finite guilt and infinite justice. No other monotheistic system posits a God who enters into the suffering of human beings without diminishing his holiness, and who bears the weight of divine justice without compromising his mercy. Which brings us to the resolution of the justice-mercy dilemma. The central problem of salvation within any system is this: how can a just God forgive the guilty without ceasing to be just? For example, in Islam, God is said to be merciful, but his justice is suspended at will. No mechanism guarantees that mercy is justly given. In certain forms of Judaism, as another example, God is just, but atonement is sought through means, ritual, repentance, sacrifice, that were historically temporary and ultimately incapable of cleansing the conscience. In both of these examples, forgiveness is hoped for, but it is not logically secured. By contrast, the Christian gospel proclaims that justice is not set aside, it is satisfied in the death of Christ. In his death, the penalty of sin is borne not by the guilty, but by a willing, sinless substitute. The law is not annulled, it is fulfilled. Thus, mercy is not arbitrary, but purchased, a gift whose cost has been paid in full in accordance with the requirements of the law. Only in Christianity is this divine forgiveness logically grounded in divine justice. The cross is not a contradiction of God's righteousness. It is its supreme vindication. It was to show his righteousness at the present time, Paul says, so that he might be just and the justifier of the one who has faith in Jesus, as he says in Romans 3:26. So, atonement, the sacrificial systems of ancient Judaism, for example, the penances of Islam, and the karmic mechanisms of Eastern monotheistic traditions all point towards a singular truth, that guilt demands resolution. In all these systems, though, the solution is either symbolic, uncertain, or incomplete. Christianity and only Christianity claims that the atonement offered is not merely a gesture, nor a means of appeasement, but an actual substitution in reality, wherein the guilt of sin is imputed to Christ and the righteousness of Christ imputed to the believer. This is not a philosophical abstraction. This is a real transaction, justice enacted, not evaded. Such a framework is logically robust. First of all, it preserves divine holiness. Secondly, it satisfies moral justice. Thirdly, it offers genuine mercy. And fourthly, it removes the burden of merit from the shoulders of sinners. Thus, the Christian doctrine of substitutionary atonement emerges as the only logical, sustainable resolution to the dilemma faced by all works-based systems, the impossibility of sinful man standing justified before a holy God. So this brings us to grace. Grace as a superior moral economy. In systems where salvation is contingent upon human effort, the result is often either despair for those who fail or pride for those who imagine that they succeed. But Christianity, by grounding salvation in grace alone, through simply faith in that grace, eliminates both outcomes. Grace is not injustice, nor is it indifference to sin. It is justice already satisfied, extended freely to those who could never satisfy it themselves. It humbles the proud and comforts the despairing, establishing a moral economy in which all glory belongs to God and all hope is secured in Him. This not only accords with human experience, where none are perfectly righteous, but with divine logic. Only a salvation rooted in grace can be both just and universally applicable. So, we're getting to the end here. So think about with me a God who promises and performs. Christian theism stands apart in that its soteriological claims are tethered to historical events, prophetic continuity, and public fulfillment. While this talk here does not yet enter the full evidentiary defense of such claims, especially the historical claims, it must be noted that the Christian conception of salvation is grounded in verifiable claims, which we will look at extensively in coming videos. The life, death, and resurrection of Christ. Not in private revelation or mystical insight or philosophical abstraction. In this way, Christianity is not merely a system of thought. It is a claim about what God has literally done in time and space, in physical reality as well as spiritual. And such a structure allows the falsifiability, a rare feature in religious systems, and one that testifies to its logical seriousness. So, what's the point? Well, Christian theism alone presents a God who is worthy of trust, not merely because he is powerful, but because he is logically consistent, morally perfect, and redemptively engaged. The triune God of Christianity is no distant, abstract force, but the personal and infinite being in whom justice and mercy are not at war, but fulfilled in harmony. It all comes back to Christ. If salvation is to be both intellectually defensible and morally sufficient, it must be offered by a God such as this. Let me know what you think, if I missed anything, and just know that next time we'll go deeper into specific religions, and as we go through this study, we're going to really get into a lot of what's considered evidence for the historicity of the New Testament, and thus the reliability of its claims, that it is the most likely candidate for real salvation in reality for all. Let me know what you think. Thanks.